Good morning, good morning, good morning. Excited that you guys are all here. Give me 1 second, just dropping the link here to a few spots, and then we will get this party started. Give me 1 second, everyone. I will share my screen here in 1 second. So this way we can get our word for the morning.
Strength, leadership, power, authority, guidance, patience are God's gift to us as men. We have to cherish that, not abuse it. I prayed this morning to be a better listener. Didn't work so well. We're human. You get back up. Yes, I've been high up on the mountain. I've been blessed. But that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it's lonely up there. You know, people don't know that side.
We did not come this far to just break down and lose now. I'm a winner. I'm going to win.
True desire in the heart, that itch that you have, whatever it is you want to do, that thing that you want to do to help, that thing that you want to do to help others and to grow and to make money, that desire, that itch, that's God's proof to you. Sit beforehand already to indicate that it's yours. Aspire to make a difference. You are what you are in this world. That's either one of two things. Either you're somebody, or you're nobody. Never give up. Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish. It's not easy. If it were easy, there'd be no Denzel Washington. So, keep working. Keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So, keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work. While it may be frightening, it will also be rewarding. So you gotta get out there, you gotta give it everything you got, whether it's your time, your talent, your prayers, or your treasures. Because taking risk is not just about going for a job. It's also about knowing what you know and what you don't know. It's about being open to people and to ideas. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. Because the chances you take, the people you meet, the people you love, the faith that you have, that's what's going to define you. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Fail big. Today is the beginning of the rest of your life, and it can be very frightening. It's a new world out there. It's a mean world out there, and you only live once. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances professionally. Don't be afraid to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. So have dreams, but have goals. Life goals, yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. I try to give myself a goal every day. Sometimes just to not curse somebody out. Simple goals, but have goals. And understand that to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. In order to achieve your goals, you must apply discipline, which you have already done, and consistency every day, not just on Tuesday and this a few days. You have to work at it. Hard work works. You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. I don't care how much money you make, you can't take it with you. The Egyptians tried it. They got robbed. That's all they got. You can't take it with you. And it's not how much you have. It's what you do with what you have. We all have different talents. Some of you will be doctors, some lawyers, some scientists, some educators, some nurses, some preachers. The most selfish thing you can do in this world is help someone else. Why is it selfish? Because the gratification, the goodness that comes to you, the good feeling that I get from helping others, nothing's better than that. Well, one or two things, but nothing's better than that. Not jewelry, not big house I have, not the cars, but it's the joy. That's where the joy is in helping others. That's where the success is. And anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one. Remember, just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Remember that. Just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Don't confuse movement with progress. My mother told me, she said, yeah, because you can run in place all the time and never get anywhere. So continue to strive, continue to have goals, continue to progress.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? That's our goal this morning, is to progress a little bit further, to push a little farther, to push a little harder as we're trying to make it to that next level. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Big Beard. I see y'all. I see you guys here in the chat this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And just super excited to always be here on First Call every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. Monday and Wednesday, we're on Twitter Spaces, and on Friday, we're on YouTube Live. And you guys know on every Friday, I love to share some victories. I love to share some wins, some things that, we've overcome, some of the things that we've gained the victory on, some of the things that we've been able to just accomplish. So as always, if you guys have any wins to share, give me 1 second. Let me just copy this link. Any wins to share, feel free to copy and paste this link. And I can bring you into the green screen room, so this way you can just come up here real quick. You don't have to have your camera on. You don't have to let anybody see you. Just here to share. And I appreciate you guys for liking this video. Please like it if you're inside the building real quick. Helps boost the algorithm, helps just helps me out a little bit. So I appreciate the support that you guys have always shown. For me this week, I guess the biggest win that I have is just a win of control, right? It's a win of control. It's not really a win of, oh, I did this, or it was not a big significant win of like I had a big life breakthrough or anything. It was just a win where like this week, it's actually yesterday, right? I had like 2 to 3 sales calls where like the customers were just so frustrated, and they were like, it was to the point where it was like almost becoming combative, right? And the thing about sales, it's like a dance, right? It's a give and take. It's like a flow. It's a dance that you're trying to lead people down a journey to let them realize that they have an issue, that they have a problem, and your product and service is going to be the thing that's going to solve that problem for them, right? But some people are just so frustrated. Some people are just so entitled. Some people are just so like, yo, I don't have time for this, or I need to know X, Y, and Z, that sometimes like the conversations can get a little bit heated. Sometimes it can be a little bit like frustrating because you can't, like, they don't understand that there's a reason why you're going through the process that you're going through. There's a reason why you're asking some of the questions that you're asking. So this week I had a few sales calls where it was literally not as much of a dance as much as if it was a tug of war, right? Or maybe a dance battle, I guess you could say. And it's funny because I was on the phone this week with a representative from the U.S. Postal Service, and she just had like a very mean and nasty attitude for really no reason, right? It's not like I was hostile to her or anything, but I was like, I gave her, I didn't go off on her or nothing. I was just like, I understand, like, you talk to a lot of people every day, all day. I'm sure you deal with customers who all have a different walk of life and things like that. So it was just like, for me, I get it. But also at the same time, I'm like, hey, I speak to people every day as well. And now it's just funny because I spoke to her earlier in the week and I was just kind of put off by her frustration, right? But then later on in the week, I was in a very similar predicament. And I had to catch myself. I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, hold on, Noble. You just were condemning person or judging somebody or giving your 2 cents on somebody earlier in the week for acting a certain way on the phone and for having certain customer service skills and having certain rapport and rhetoric that just was unnecessary. What are you doing now? And that's where, for me, where I had to catch myself and be like, yo, control your attitude, control your emotions, control yourself in this environment. Not only so this way you can learn from this lesson, but also so this way you have the opportunity to still make the sale. One thing that Grant Cardone always says is like, you'll never make a sale fighting with the customer, right? And it's really true. Because it's just like, it does, whether the customer sees the value in the product or not, or whether they agree with the things that you're saying or not, like, you'll never make the sale arguing with the customer. So for me, I had to control myself because at the end of the day, the goal was to get the sale, right? But then when I was thinking about the course of this week, how it's gone for me, my sports betting has been super successful this week, killing the books right now. We're going through another hot streak. That was control. Right? And because I could have taken more bets, like last night, I took like 2-3 early bets. I had one more late night bet that started at like 11:30 that I could have taken. I overpassed it. It would have hit. When I woke up this morning, I checked, it would have hit. But it's no regret. I had control. Right? I bumped into somebody in the gym this week, and they just had like a little bit of an attitude, and I could have, went off, or I could have honked the horn at somebody who cut me off this week, but it was control. And for me, that's my win of the week because we want to make more money. We're reading the psychology of money. But guess what? This whole book is irrelevant if you don't have control. Not only control over your finances, but control over your emotions, control over the way that you see the world, control over your work ethic and your habit. So that's my win of this week, is that when you get into certain environments and certain predicaments, it doesn't require you always to be right. It doesn't require you to see the other perspective of somebody else. It doesn't require you to try to convince them to see things your way. It's about controlling yourself, because even if you might not agree, it's like, you know what? Cool. Do you. And that's what we're trying to do. Or excuse me, that's what I'm trying to do, is have more control. And if I can't control myself, then there's no way that I'll ever be able to control somebody else or control my future, control my environment, control my finances, control my health. There's no way. So that's my win of the week. And again, if you guys have any wins of the week, feel free to share that. I see you guys this morning. Good morning, Jesse. Good morning, Michelle. Great to see you guys here in the building this morning. And I'm just so thankful for this group and this community, because this community, believe it or not, First Call gives me control. Why? Because it makes me have to wake up at a specific time every day or 3 times a week to make sure that I'm here. That's a control level. Last night, me and my girl went out on a date, and we could have stayed out later in the evening and night. But guess what? I was like, nah, I got to get up for First Call in the morning. So you know what? Let me go to bed at a decently reasonable time between 11 and 12 instead of being out till 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever the case may be. That's control. So sometimes you can put things inside of your schedule. You can put yourself in certain environments that now force you to be more controlled. And that's where, for me, I'm just super excited that I'm taking more control, not only over my future, but of my behavior and my habits. And that is going to correlate and translate into the things that I want to accomplish and I want to achieve. Today, we're going to be discussing chapters 11 and 12 of The Psychology of Money. If you just tapping in, we've been reading this book by Morgan Housel, and it's an excellent book that I believe everybody should read. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, feel free to grab it, because we're only about halfway through. The book is not that long in terms of each chapter is only like 3, 4, 5 pages long, so it's something you can get through pretty quickly. The audio book is also available on Audible. That's really quick to go through as well. And then there's also free PDF versions online as well that you can go through. But this book, I believe that every person should read this book, is because it allows you to understand some of the nuances that go into creating wealth, but also it gives you just a little bit of a different perspective on where you are in your journey. And it allows you not to be complacent, but allows you to understand that if you're at a certain point or you're a certain age, that you know what? It is okay if I haven't created the wealth just yet. It's okay if I'm on my process. It's okay if I don't have everything that I want, at this point in my journey. Why? Because some of the principles about money, you simply just haven't been taught. Some of the principles about creating wealth is simply something because of when you were born. Some of the principles about how to generate more income and create more money is simply just because you were not in the right environment and in the right times, and because of that, the world has completely changed. And that's really the thing that Housel is talking about in chapters 11 and 12, is that when it comes down to investing and making money, that you have to be open. Right? And it's not just open to ideas, and it's not just open to new investment vehicles. It's not just being open to new opportunities, but it's about being open to a new way of thinking, right? And in chapter 11, it's titled Reasonable Over Rational. And I love that. Reasonable over rational. He says, aiming to be the mostly reasonable works better than trying to be the most and cold rational a person. So because for many of us, right, we are trying to be rational in our investment decisions when really we need to be just reasonable at the most basic levels. Now, you guys heard me speak about a few weeks. I think that call is in my bio, or not my bio, but in my previous calls, where I was giving you guys a few tips for creating wealth. And I was talking about that one thing that you have to do is evaluate your risk tolerance, right? And your risk tolerance and your risk tolerance and your risk threshold. Your risk tolerance and your risk threshold. Why is that? Because it's going to allow you to start thinking reasonably rather than rationally. So here's the difference. Rationalism, right, is about numbers. It's about, okay, I know the stock market's going to generate me X and Y, Z returns over this course of time, so therefore I'm going to start investing in the markets, because over time you'll make money. And Housel breaks this down, right? So let's talk about this real quick. Then the historical odds of making money in the US markets are about 50% over a 1-day period. Actually, 50-50 over a 1-day period. That's why day trading is super hard. That's why, trading options on weeklies is very hard, because over the course of a day-to-day standpoint, the markets are very up and down. They're very volatile, so it's hard. So over the course of about a day-to-day, it's about 50-50. But over the course of 1 year, the historical odds of making money in the US markets is about 68%. Over a 10-year period, it's about 88%. Over a 20-year period, it's about 100%. So anything that keeps you in the game has a quantifiable advantage, right? That's what Housel's saying in this chapter. So what that means is that once I break down those stats to you, once I break down those numbers to you, it's rational for you to be investing in the stock market. But what's not reasonable is for you to hear that, oh shoot, over a 1 year period, there's a 68% chance that I'm going to be making money historically in the stock market. So let me push all of my savings into the stock market. Why is that not reasonable? Because you're going to need your savings maybe for an emergency fund. You're going to need your savings just in case there's a recessionary environment. You're going to need your savings just in case there's a chance that there's an opportunity for you to invest in somewhere else, right? So there's a difference between being rational and being reasonable. And the problem is that many of us are getting caught up in social media trends, NFTs, cryptocurrency, stock market, real estate, wholesaling, starting a business, entrepreneurship, leaving your 9 to 5, betting on yourself. Like, some of these things make sense on the numbers because entrepreneurs make a whole lot more money than people who make a 9 to 5, because real estate, 90% of people, millionaires in this world or in the US, were created through real estate. Like, it's a lot more rational, for you to be a part of some of these investment vehicles, but it's not reasonable for your situation. And the problem is that you will start trying to get started in some of these things, and then you give up and you quit at hard times because you try to make the rational decision rather than the reasonable decision. So the point that we're trying to make here in this chapter is, don't aim to be coldly rational when making financial decisions. Aim just to be pretty reasonable. The reasonable investors who love their technically imperfect strategies have an edge because they are more likely to stick with their strategies. Make that make sense? Let me repeat that one more time. The reasonable investors who love their technically imperfect strategies have an edge because they're more likely to stick with their strategies, right? So you guys have heard me talk about sports betting a lot. You guys know that I'm a big avid sports bettor. It's something that my parents are not in the most agreeance in. I come from a religious background. In the Bible, it talks about, you don't want to gamble and things like that, right? But guess what? The stock market's a gamble. Real estate is a gamble. Sports betting is a gamble. Entrepreneurship and starting a business is a gamble. Taking a job is a gamble. Because everything that we do in life, getting in the car and driving, is a gamble. Do you know that cars kill more people than any other thing in the country? Like car accidents? But that doesn't stop you from getting in the car, right? Because you made a reasonable decision that I won't go over the speed limit. You made a reasonable decision that I'll put on my indicators and check my blind spots before I get into that next lane, right? So the thing is, for me, sports betting is a marketplace that is about reasonable rather than rational. Because I understand, for me to create the wealth that I want to generate, I have to get into another revenue stream. I have to be in something that is going to create more income for myself. I have to be involved in a marketplace that allows me to scale and to grow. But people ask me all the time, no, but you know how to options trade. Why don't you options trade over sports betting? I've option traded. I've made good money options trading. Tens of thousands of dollars of doing it. But it's not reasonable for me because I don't like technical analysis like that. It's not reasonable for me because I don't care to stare at charts all day. It's not reasonable for me because I don't care to do all the things that is required to be a good options trader. Now, I like the stock market from a long-term perspective, so that is where the rationalism mixed with my reasonablism puts together. But I love sports. I watch sports. I've been tracking sports my entire life. I have a big history in sports, like management and data and history. So therefore, sports betting is the reasonable investment for me that makes sense for what I'm going for. Is it perfect? No. But there's no investment that's perfect. It's a technically imperfect strategy, but it gives me an edge because it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I'm willing to dedicate the time and energy to. It's something that I'm willing to stay consistent in. It's something that I'm willing to put in the late hours in to be good at it. And when the times get rough, when I go through a cold streak, when I lose a bet or two, guess what happens? I'm more willing to stick with that than I would with options trading. It's more willing for me to stick with that than calling up 50,000 leads for a wholesale contract to try to just get one home flip. It's what works for me. So my question to you this morning is, what investment vehicle works for you that it will allow you to stick through the tough times, that will allow you to stay consistent, that will allow you to keep pushing through despite the fact that you don't have it all figured out just yet, despite the fact that you might not have all the answers, despite the fact that you are going to lose money, despite the fact that you are going to have red days, despite the fact that that there is going to be some pain. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. There's no investment that I've ever got into, whether it's DJing, whether it's creating my business, whether it's selling courses or doing sales for other people, whether it's a stock market, whether it's a real estate venture. I've been in Airbnbs. I have done sports betting. I have flipped cars. I have done a lot of different things to hustle and make money. I used to have a Jordan shoe resale brand. There's a lot of things I've done to make money. But there's a lot of things that I was doing because it rationally made sense, because the dollars made sense, but it wasn't reasonable for where I was in life or for the things that I was trying to accomplish and achieve. I hope this makes sense. There are few financial variables more correlated to performance than a commitment to a strategy during its lean years. And what that means is that every single marketplace is going to have up times and down times. The economic business cycle looks like this. There's peaks, there's valleys, there's high points, and there's troughs, right? That's just how it goes. There's expansionary periods, there's recessionary periods. It doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter. Your job goes through expansions and recessions. Guess what's happening right now in the tech field? You think they're laying off tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are losing a job. So just because you think you've got a 9 to 5 does not succumb you from these economic cycles. Just because you think that you're an entrepreneur does not allow you to avoid these economic cycles. Just because you're in real estate and all of a sudden you are in a property and somebody's paying for the lease, guess what? That does not make you avoid these ups and downs and these valleys. Every single investment has it. But what allows you to keep going, what allows you to keep pushing forward, is not as much of the financial variables behind the strategy as much as it is correlated to the performance when you're committed to a strategy. So now the point is that you now have to be committed. You heard Denzel Washington in the clip that I said earlier. You have to be passionate. And the thing is, you have to be patient. And if you are going to fall, it's not about falling backwards, it's about falling forward. So when there is a recessionary period, it's about sticking through it and falling forward. When you do lose that job, it's about reinvesting in your skills and becoming better and keep applying and finding new things, new certifications, new ways that increases your value in the marketplace. So this way you fall forward. I hope this is making sense. But so many of us, we are trying to find that next investment. We're trying to find that next thing, and it's about being reasonable over rational. And I love the example that he gave with Julius Wagner, the psychiatrist who found that fevers play an important role in helping the body fight infection. He found that the cure for treating syphilis, which is a mental disease, is by inducing a fever. He actually won a Nobel Prize in 1927 for this, right? But he was the only person in history who recognized that fever's roles in fighting infection and prescribed it as a treatment. So when he had patients who had syphilis or who had these mental issues, he literally induced a purposeful fever on them to now reduce this infection. But this is where the science ends, right? And reality takes over. Because at the end of the day, for all of us, if your doctor told you for you to overcome the disease that you're currently going through, and he says, you're going through this disease, you got syphilis, but you know what? You need to make sure that you get a fever to overcome this. You're going to look at him like he's ludicrous. Because you're going to be like, you're going to tell me for me to overcome one disease, I have to have another sickness or another, illness to overcome one to get to the other? Like, that makes no sense. But science proves that fevers are good, but can also, but is that something that we can really induce in reality? Really, no, we can't. Because fevers hurt. Because fevers are painful. Nobody wants to lay up in bed all day and feeling groggy. Nobody wants to have 102 temperature and have their body aching and their head pounding and their throat itching and their chest palpitating. Like, nobody wants that. So because of that, people don't want to hurt. So guess what happens? It's not reasonable for us to inject the fever as a treatment. You see how that makes sense? So the same goes in finance. And what Housel says in this chapter is that more forecasts about where the economy is headed and the stock market are headed next is terrible. When you watch CNBC, what are they talking about? Recessionary. It's gonna be a bad time. We're just trying to make it. When you hear Joe Biden, the State of the Union address, he pats himself on the back. Oh, I did good this past year, last few years, but there's always a but. That things might be turning bad. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that, right? That's all it says. The forecast about where the economy is headed typically is in a terrible direction. But making forecasts is reasonable. People don't want to live without a clue of what the future holds. Predicting human nature is reasonable. I hope you guys are understanding how these things connect. So the difference between reasonable and rational is rational decisions are based on facts, math, data, science. Just like at the end of the day, hey, I can inject you with this fever and you will be cured. That's a rational decision. But the reasonable decisions are based on what you think is correct, although it might seem logical or not. And that's why I'm here to let you understand that some of you guys, you got to start questioning some of these things and some of these doctrines that you were raised up in, because it was rational, but it was not necessarily reasonable, right? You have to start questioning some of these things that your grandmother told you because it worked for her time, but not your time. Because at that, it was rational, but it's not necessarily reasonable. Like, it's time that you really start looking in the mirror and start diving into some of the history, start diving into some of the facts, and start making sense of some of these things. I hope this is making sense. My big boy, Big Beard said facts, facts, facts. My boy Jesse said facts. Okay, I'm glad you guys are getting this, right? And that's where Housel transitions into chapter 12, and he says this, right? He says, surprise. Right? Actually, hold on. Before I do that, I just want to read this one part from this exact chapter, because I really think that it will bring this whole reasonable to rational correlation together. Right? He says this here: if you view do what you love as a guide to a happier life, it sounds like an empty fortune cookie advice. But if you view it as the thing providing the endurance necessary to put the quantifiable odds of success in your favor, you realize that it should be the most important part of your financial strategy. Let me say that one more time. If you view do what you love as a guide to a happier life, it sounds like empty fortune cookie advice. But if you view it as the thing providing the endurance necessary to put the quantifiable odds of success in your favor, you realize it should be the most important part of any financial strategy. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was telling me about how he's been struggling to get back on track, to get back into a rhythm. He's trying to change his life. He's trying to change his behaviors and habits. He's tired of facing some of the old things that he's been facing. He's tired of dealing with some of the same reoccurring issues over and over again. And I told him, I said, bro, one of the things that you need, and one of the things that he was trying to get, right, was his body, and not just inside the gym, but just his dietary habits, the way that he looks, the way that he feels, having more energy, things of that nature, right? And I told him, I said, bro, the reason why you don't have the success that you want from a physical standpoint, the reason why you don't have the energy that you want to have, the reason why that you just feel like you're not getting this breakthrough is because you don't have the endurance, you don't have the stamina. But the reason why you don't have the endurance and stamina is because what you are doing is not sustainable. Like what he will do is he'll hit me up, be like, Noble, I'm back, boy. I'm in it, man. I went to the gym twice a day. I'm grinding, bro. I've done 3 miles today. I'm doing 2 miles tomorrow. I've done 200 push-ups. I'm doing 150 sit-ups. And I'm like, bro, that doesn't impress me. That like, cool. You did that for 1 week. You did that for 2 weeks. But is that going to be sustainable? Are you going to do that for 6 months? Are you going to do that for 2 years? Are you going to do that for 20 years? No, you're not. And that's why you burn out, bro, because you're going so hard for such a short amount of time, but then you feel like you're making a breakthrough until you hit a brick wall, until you get tired, until you have to go out of town, until you have to work a late shift and you don't feel like waking up early to go back to the gym. It's not sustainable. But if you find something that you like to do, whether it's cycling, whether it's playing basketball, whether it's running on the track, whether it's lifting weights, whether it's doing calisthenics, plyometrics, whatever the case may be, and you do an hour every day or 45 minutes instead of going hard at 2-a-days and trying to run up hills in 90-degree weather like you're freaking Rocky Balboa, you will have the endurance. You will have the stamina. And you're doing something that you love. I don't necessarily love working out, but I love being in shape. I love the way that my body feels. I love the feeling that I get from being in shape and from being able to do anything that I want to do how I want to do it. But I put something on my story yesterday. I said, don't be impressed with my physique. Be impressed with my dedication. Like, don't be impressed with the fact that I got muscles or this or that or another. Like, people hit me up all the time. Like, don't try to get on my workout plan just to get on the workout plan. Don't do that. Be impressed that I show up every day at 5:30, at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning and get to the gym. Be impressed with that. Be impressed that if I have something coming up and I can't make it to the gym that day, that I'll crank out a few push-ups or pull-ups or sit-ups before I go to sleep, even if it wasn't a full workout. Be impressed with that. Be impressed that if I could not even lift a single weight or do any pull-ups or sit-ups that day, that I'm going to make sure that I'm eating clean. Be impressed with that. Like, be impressed with the dedication. And I'm here to ask you this morning, are you impressed with your dedication? Are you impressed with your endurance? Are you impressed with your stamina? Because if you're not, it doesn't matter if it's the stock market. It doesn't matter if it's real estate. It doesn't matter if it's entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter if it's crypto. It doesn't matter if it's insurance. It doesn't matter if it's Fortune 500. It doesn't matter if it's working up the corporate ranks. It doesn't matter. Do you have the stamina? And if you have the stamina, you're going to do what you love. And the biggest way to find the stamina and to find what works for you, right, is what Housel says in chapter 12. Right? And he says, surprise. And why I love the way that he titles his chapter Surprise is because he says that history is the study of change. And ironically, it's used as a map for the future. So the thing is, many of us, we are trying to find a thing that we love based off of history. But ironically, history is not the thing that we really should be looking at to dictate what we're trying to do in the future. And that's what Housel's breaking down in this chapter. Because for many of us, we saw that Warren Buffett's made billions of dollars in the stock market, so we're like, all right, that's going to be the thing. We've seen that people have been able to make wealth in real estate, so you're like, all right, that's going to be the thing. Not saying that it's not an avenue that can work for you, because it definitely can. It definitely will, right? But what we have to understand is that history is mostly the study of surprising events. But it's often used by investors and economists as an insatiable guide to the future. Do you see the irony in that? Okay, I see my boy Moyo in the building real quick. Hold on, I'm about to add you, Moyo. Give me 1 second, bro. Right? And before I dive into this real quick, let me get Moyo to pop up here. He just hopped in here real quick. What's up, bro? How you doing? Good morning, man.
Hey, what's up, bro? Good morning. I just want to say my win. First things first, great work what you're doing. I could come up here every Friday with a brand new win every Friday, right? So this week, actually earlier this week, I was able to get my license. So right now, I'm a licensed investment and retirement planner. So it's like a licensed insurance agent, but I'm independent, right? So I work for none of the companies. I work for myself, and I have access to all the life insurance companies. That's like 250 life insurance companies. So I can offer the best life insurance to my clients. So right now I've been helping like lots of diaspora people to get things that are better than a better investment vehicle than 401k, a more guaranteed investment vehicle than mutual funds, than what's out there. I'm trying to like educate people about finances now. And I've been doing it for like immigrants and diasporas because I know how it feels to to be an immigrant or diaspora and lack information. I've seen there's lack of information in that world, right? It's like information is hoarded in this other higher class world, that this lower cost world. So I'm like, what? Since I have this type of information, I might as well teach people around me. Like right now, I have a client who's my mom-in-law actually. We're trying to switch her 401k, which is in the hundreds of thousands, and move it into insurance. So I just educated her on something better than the 401k. And you'd be crazy to find out how many people don't even know what this 401k is. How many people don't even know what mutual funds actually does to their investments. Like people work so hard for their money, but they don't know what to do with it. So I found that, and it's something I love so much. Like I love marketing, right? But like it's part of marketing. So I'm like, this is the perfect product to market, right? For me now, it's not like e-commerce. I'm not selling clothes again. I'm not selling shoes. I'm not selling caps. I'm not selling nothing again. This is all I'm selling: financial freedom and financial education, right? And that's my win for this week. This book too has been crazy, Mr. Noble. This book is crazy. I'm on chapter 13 to surprises, room for error, reasonability over rationality, knowing when enough is enough. These things are just normal things that common sense, right? But it's not common, right? It's common sense that's not common. The Bible says common sense belongs to God. So yeah. So I'm just glad to be here, and that's my win for the week, bro. Yeah, bro.
Let's go, man. Moyo always coming up with the fire, bro, and the wins, bro. And every time you come up here, man, it's like you're taking a significant stride up to that next level. It's like every time you come up here, it's another blessing, it's another testimonial, it's another major win, bro. And I'm glad to hear, man, that you are just continuing to dive into your skill sets, bro, and your talents, and you're finding it, right? Like it started in marketing and you're still doing marketing, but now it's in a different way, right? With now life insurance, teaching people 401ks, teaching people retirement. And that's why we get started. Because when you get started, then from there, now you're now able to start figuring out what's the next step. Fall forward. Even if the digital marketing wasn't business the way that you needed to do, fall forward. Maybe if some of the failures you've had, it fall forward, bro. So I'm happy to hear that. Clap it up. The people in the chat are giving you your praises, bro. So I'm happy to hear that, Moyo, man.
Guys.
Let's get it, bro. Let's get it.
And if anybody has any wins, anything is a win. If you got a new, if your car broke down when you were able to get a new car, that's a win. If you got a baby, that's a win. If you made it this week, got the extra check outside your check, that's a win. Everything is a win. Everything better than yesterday is a win. So nice work, Noble. Just had to come. So you got winners on the team too.
I appreciate you, Moyo, man. I appreciate you always sharing, brother. Thank you, man. And the thing what Moyo just shared, right? And it's actually funny because Housel talks about it inside of this chapter, in the sense of, for us, history can be a misleading guide to the future of the economy and the stock market because it doesn't account for the structural changes that are relevant to today's world, right? For an example, Moyo just said that he's now coaching and helping people with their 401ks. You don't understand that the 401k is only 42 years old, right? He's now helping people with their Roth and their IRA, another retirement account. That was created in the 1990s, right? So the thing is, don't beat yourself up. Don't knock yourself down because you're not understanding how to do some of these things. You're trying to study history as a way to try to get to your future, but you got to understand that some of the things in history are, one, not that dated, like the IRA is almost younger than I am. Two, we're still figuring these things out. We're still trying to connect all the pieces. And thank God for people like Moyo who are willing to take the torch, who are willing to take the time and the energy to research these things, to investigate them deeper. So this way he can now help other people who don't have the education or who are a little bit older and just don't have the resources and the energy to put back into studying this stuff. And that's where Housel's talking about in this chapter for us, that history can be very misguiding, and it's actually can be very dangerous, because when you look at history, two dangerous things happen, right? You rely heavily on investment history as a guide to what's going to happen next. But this is the thing. One, you will most likely miss the outlier events that move the needle the most. And I love the fact that he put this in there, right? Because think about this, right? Look at these people that he named. In the last, like, let's just say in the last 100 years, right? Maybe 200 years. We've probably had over 15 billion people born, live, die within that time frame, right? But if we did not have Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, right? Mao Zedong, Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, the world would look completely different because of these 8-9 individuals that I just told you in the last 100, 200 years, right? These people were outlier events. 15 billion people were born and died over the last century or so, right? In the 19th and 20th century. But guess what? The world was heavily impacted by what? By 8, 9, 10 people? If it wasn't for Adolf Hitler, how do you think the world would look differently right now? If it wasn't for Martin Luther King, how do you think the world would look differently? How would this country look differently? If it wasn't for Bill Gates, how do you think technology would be different right now? All right, okay, people are people. What about projects? If it wasn't for the Great Depression, how would the economy look different? How would the world look different? If it wasn't for World War II, if it wasn't for the Manhattan Project, if it wasn't for vaccinations, I mean, shoot, we just seen what vaccinations can do to an economy, to a people, to a society. We just seen that in lifetime in the last few years, right? What about antibiotics? What about September 11th? What about the World Wide Web, WWW? What about the fall of the Soviet Union? You guys got to understand this. History is going to help us understand the future, right? But it cannot be used as a predicator or the sole thing that we're using to help us understand the next thing that we're trying to get into or the next things that are possible for us. Because you got to understand that history fails to take account for the outlier events that are so significant. You guys remember last week when I showed you the tail distribution? Right? The standard deviation curve, the bell curve. Remember when I showed you that? There are tail events that are so far out of the normal that have such an impact on society that we have to consider these things and how that it impacts us, right? And for many of us, these projects were literally life-changing events. And he says this, the correct lesson is to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising. Not that we should use past surprises as a guide to future boundaries, that we should use past surprises as an admission that we have no idea of what might happen next. That's it. And that's all I tell my family when I talk about sports betting is gambling 200 years ago in the 19th century was wrong. Why? Because they didn't have the internet. They didn't have the access to internet, to the information. They were looking at horses and saying, all right, I'm going to put money on this horse. They were looking at cards or dice and flipping dice and saying, this is the way that I'm going to go. This is the way I'm going to gamble on. They didn't have some of the research that we have now. They don't have some of the access to the resources that we have now. If you think what was wrong yesterday is wrong today, cool, that's fine. But just understand this. It's what we should be looking at history is that not that we should use it as a past surprise, as a guide to future boundaries, but we should use it as an admission that we have no idea what might happen next. If you knew that the internet was going to be what it was going to be in 2000, you would have invested way before. If you knew that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin was going to be what it was going to be, you would have invested way back in 2008 and 2009 and 2010 when it first started coming to the board. If you knew digital currencies was going to have the impact that it was right now, and online payment process like Visa, MasterCard, Tap to Pay, you would have done it. You would have done it. But that's the thing. History can teach us things, but it's not always going to be able to predicate what's the next thing. So Moyo, his history in marketing, his history in entrepreneurship, it led him to now this next thing for him, which is entrepreneurship, marketing, sales, but in a whole different field. It's going to help you get started. It's going to help you lead you in the right path. If it wasn't for the stock market, if it wasn't for my shoe business, if it wasn't for hustling mentality, I would never be in the position that I'm in now. So it helps you get started. But understand that you cannot use that as the sole pillars as to why you won't do things, because that will cripple you and stop you and make you miss over opportunities. And the definition of poor is passing over opportunities repeatedly. So you got to stop being poor and you've got to start being rich. And the way for you to be rich is stop getting stuck in your mindset, stop getting fixed minds about certain things and certain environments and certain marketplaces and saying, I don't know about this, so I'm not going to get my hands in it. I don't want to risk it. I don't want to take that leap. Fine. Keep passing over opportunities repeatedly. Keep letting different things keep going in one ear and out the other. Keep letting things go over your head. Stop putting in the time and the research. Keep not trying to get new skill sets. Keep going that way. And tell me how life changes for you. Please tell me. Because I promise you'll just be a victim of circumstance. I promise you'll just keep going through the motions. I promise you. I promise you. If you're wanting to take control over your life and your situation, history is going to help you. But then also staying present in that time and understanding where we are in the current marketplace, in the current environment, that is the most important thing. And that's why I love this interview that I've listened to by Mark Cuban. I might play it for one of the morning, sessions, listens that I, because you guys know I play like a video early on in the session. Like Mark Cuban said he is always learning. Do you know Mark Cuban? You know those guys online who are buying courses, who sell courses, and who sell masterminds and educational material? I was listening to an interview with him, and he's like, bro, I buy those courses. I buy those masterminds. If a guy who is worth billions of dollars is willing to spend money on courses, why aren't you? And he says this, it's because the landscape is always changing. The world is always evolving. What worked yesterday isn't going to work today. His company that made him a billionaire, that he sold to Yahoo for billions of dollars, would not work in this environment. Why? Because it worked in the landscape of the 2000s and the early 2000s, but it doesn't work in the landscape of the 2020s. So we have to be willing to be malleable and to be able to adjust. I hope this is making sense. The number 2 thing, right, that he says is like what I mentioned before, that history can be a misleading guide to the future economy because the structural changes are always changing for what's relevant to today's world. Credit cards are a new phenomenon. And that's why people like my grandparents and my parents don't understand credit cards. Why? They don't understand credit. Because it's a new phenomenon. They come from a different country where ownership is different. In America, credit is the name of the game. If you don't want to learn credit, fine, be my guest. But understand that for the future that we're headed in, credit is the name of the game. For the future that we're headed in, retirement accounts are 401ks and IRAs. They're compound interest accounts. These are some of the things that are required. You have to be willing to adjust to the surprises that the world is going to give you. This is the last thing that I'll say. How should we think about and how should we plan for the future? How should we think about and how should we plan for the future? Realize that the future might not look like anything like the past. But that is a special kind of skill. The Housel says in this chapter, the further back in history you look, the more general your takeaway should be. General things like people's relationship to greed and fear, how they behave under stress, and how they respond to incentives tend to be stable in time. The history of money is useful for that kind of stuff. So you should not take the decisions based off of historical events. They should not be the guide to future investments. The world changes, it's full of surprises, and you don't know what will be the next surprise. You don't know what will be your next breakthrough. You don't know what is going to be the next thing that's going to create you a millionaire. If I had known that creating videos and YouTube was going to be a thing, I would have started filming a whole lot long ago, way longer before. If I had computers. You know, I get so upset about the digital space sometimes. I used to have a laptop before a lot of people had laptops. I had my first MacBook Pro in like 3rd grade. Right? I've always been a computer guy, not where I'm like a geek where I'm like breaking down computers and building computers, but I've always been somebody who knew, like, I was like 5 years old. My mom used to take me to the library and I used to know how to navigate the computers and stuff like that. Like, I've always been a computer guy. So why is it just now that I'm getting into the digital money? Why is it just now that I'm getting into this digital space when there are people like Mr. Beast making hundreds of millions of dollars off of the digital space? Logan and Jake Paul, hundreds of millions of dollars off the digital space. Why? It's because I used history as a way for where I was going to get to in my future. Go do well in school, Noble. Take your ACT, take your SAT, apply yourself, go to apply to a college, keep your head down, do your work, finish with a good GPA, go apply for some good jobs, go get a good paying job, put some away for retirement, and keep building, try to work your way up through the ranks. That's the old history of doing things. There's dudes now who are stream all day on Twitch getting paid millions of dollars to play video games. What was once known as a distraction, which was once something that was seen as a waste of time. Understand that the world is always changing and it will surprise you what can make you a millionaire. What Jordans used to be looked at as just a waste of money or just a fashion trend, and you're keeping up with the trends and you're spending $250 on shoes, I used to be reselling and selling that for $500, $1,000 to people when I was in college, just running it up. The world is always changing, but if I did not keep my mind open to the possibilities, then guess what? I would never be able to take advantage of the opportunity. So it's time that you guys start opening your mind to the possibilities. Start readjusting your mindset and really start looking at the world a little bit differently and start saying, hold on, I might not have been raised in this culture. I might not have known anything about the stock market, but I'm seeing people making money options trading. I'm seeing people making money through dividends. I'm seeing people making money through price appreciation. Why can't I learn it? I see people making money through Benny, my boy Benny right here. He's here like, he gets paid for e-games and esports. If he's open to what the new world has changed into. But if you only kept your mind on the only way for you to get involved, like I thought the only way for me to get involved in sports, if I wasn't a professional athlete, was to be a broadcaster or a journalist. But here I am, involved in sports every single day through sports betting. Here I am, involved in sports every single day through education and keep teaching sports betting. Like, there's a different way for you to get to the goal. But for us, it's time for us to stop passing over opportunities repeatedly. It's time for us to stop being poor and start having a rich mindset. And to be rich, it means that you have to be willing to adjust. You have to be willing to stop just using history as a study, but more as a guide and as a generalization to push you to the future. Now, there's some things that we're doing that the future's headed in that you might not agree with, and I'm okay, and it's okay. You don't have to jump on every latest trend, every latest thing you're not going to be in agreement with. I'm a big believer in that. But also at the same time, to be closed-minded, to be closed off to everything, to anything, There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than a person who has the ability to learn more and they choose not to learn more because they're so stuck in their ways and their way of thinking that they're now closing their mind off to things that could be the opportunity that they've needed all along. And there is nothing worse than having a closed mindset because you have an ideal, because you have an ideal or you have a way of your viewing the world that truthfully you don't need to view the like that's truthfully not relevant, or you don't need to view the world that way, or it can be adjusted, or you can make small tweaks and refinements over time. But the only way you're going to be confident in that is if you're willing to do the research, if you're willing to be educated, if you're willing to really learn and to be to be malleable and to adjust. That's it, friends. That's it. And that's all that Housel's telling us in this chapter, is that they're going to be surprises left and right. If we had known what crypto was going to be, that's a surprise. If we knew what social media on YouTube was going to be, it was going to be a surprise. I remember when Facebook first came out, it was seen as the biggest waste of time. Now, it's the #1 prospecting and marketing tool in the world. There is no place where more people congregate together and you have the ability to market it to as many people at one time than Facebook. But it's about how you view the opportunity that is going to define how you actually use it to propel you to the future that you want to create. And that's it for me this morning, my friends. That's it for me this morning, my friends. Let's stop passing over opportunities, and let's start taking advantage of them. And let's start being able to adjust and take control and make some adjustments as we get to that next level. We're reading chapters 13 and 14 on Monday. We'll be on Twitter Spaces. Those chapters, room for error. So as you're adjusting, as you're getting used to the new environment that we're in, as you're not passing over opportunities, understand that you're not going to get it all right the first time. So there's going to be room for error. And then in chapter 14, you'll change. You'll change over time. You'll change as the environment changes. So understand that it's a process. And that's the beautiful part of the psychology. It's a process. And every single time, we're going to continue to refine our process. And the goal is just to get 1% better, just to get marginally better, get a little bit better. Because understand that the margins, as they compound, the disparity will grow wider. As you have the endurance and the stamina, like I said before, as you stay consistent, and as other people fall off, they come off the tracks, but you stay consistent, that small margin, that small stamina, day after day, week after week, year after year, century, decade after decade, guess what happens? You just continue to get wider and wider. Warren Buffett's the prime example. He just started with a small investment, $50, and he just kept going. And now the disparity between him and everybody else is literally this wide. And there's no reason why we can't do the same things with our goals in our future to create that wide disparity between us, between our competition, between our old ways of thinking, our new way of thinking, our old life and our new life, our past and our future. That's it, guys. We're just trying to get marginally better. There's going to be room for error. You'll change, but you have to be open to the surprises, and you have to start thinking reasonably rather than just rationally. Hope you will see you guys this morning for pre-market prep Mindset Fridays on Twitter Spaces at 8:30 a.m. And then, anything else that you guys need from me, shoot me a text, shoot me a DM. I got you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday at 6 o'clock on Twitter Spaces. And let's get to it. Let's make some money and dictate your fate today. Let's go.